Díobh Gachtain, hello everyone. You're really welcome to the alternative to Scoil gCláirseach 2020, the festival of early Irish harp which normally takes place each August in Kilkenny in Ireland. Between the 13th and 17th of August 2020, we'll be joining together each day to watch a talk, a workshop and concert footage from previous Scoilna. Find out more on our website at irishharp.org. It's day 3 of our 2020 Alternative Festival. Welcome to today's workshop.
Oy Sliabh Geal when the failure is for the wait again me Mícheál when me with the lag fi from until we him dear meester my leve Oy Sliabh Geal when fele nach der Mícheál. If you look at the flip side of that, I don't want you to get frightened and run away. It's actually, I'm hoping this will be of use to you, actually.
That's amazing. It's actually very good.
Okay.
It's the first time we have something so well
for people who haven't been in school in Ireland, I thought it might be helpful. It also, I think, is going to kind of illustrate what I want to talk about. I can't teach you this song in 40 minutes or an hour. That's not going to happen. I've given the school a recording of me singing it and me slowly reciting the words, and I think you're going to have access to that. So if you want to go back and follow this up and actually learn the song, I'm more interested in trying to give you an understanding of how modern Irish song works, so that when you're if you go to learn songs, that you'll have a kind of a concept in your head as to how to go about it, how these songs work structurally, and also if you're going to interpret them as airs on the harp, that you will have a kind of an intuitive understanding of how these songs hang, if that's not an inappropriate phrase. I can't think of anything else. Somebody else started me off with that. You're listening to Simon talking about a major threshold in the history of the harp at around 1600, and it's a major threshold for a lot of reasons in Ireland. And not least in the poetic tradition. It's where what's poetry and what's song and what's music isn't as simple as one would imagine. But certainly the learned poets in Ireland were writing in what they called syllabic verse before 1600. And the word, if any of you have Irish, you've come across a word, dawn. And dawn is the modern Irish, we call that a poem. And that would be interpreted as something in verse that you're not singing. But that's not what we're talking about here. There's another word then. Sorry, no, I have a frozen shoulder, so my handwriting isn't very good. But auron. That word is, in modern Irish, just means a song. But what we're talking about here is methods of writing poetry. The dawn was originally an unstressed metre. So it's a poetry written in unstressed metre. Whether that was sung or not, of course, is another matter. I believe Anne is coming to Galway to work on that particular subject. But we have very little knowledge as to how dawn were sung. After 1600, or say with the collapse of the Gaelic political order, and patronage of poetry. Poets no longer had access to the type of specialised training that enabled them to write form. So they adopted óráin. So in other words, the poets, the literary poets, if you like, adopted song as their medium of poetry. And they were probably doing this long before we actually see them. There's an edict by Henry VIII prohibiting poets in Ireland from writing a thing called an óráin. But we don't see them. They appear, and when they appear very, very developed. Now, óráin is basically stressed meter poetry, whether it's sung or not. But most of it probably was sung. The other interesting thing is, colloquially in Irish, you say, if you ask someone to sing a song, you say, aber óráin, so say a song. He said a lovely song last night, Dúirt sé óráin bra air. I'm not referring to myself. So the connection is complicated. Those words don't correspond exactly to what we mean by a poem or a song, or like, was Bob Dylan a poet or a songwriter, and these sorts of questions. It doesn't really apply. The other thing is that the poets, they had developed a system of assonant rhymes on the stresses. So there's so many stresses in the line, and they developed a system whereby they would use very often long vowels at those particular points. And I'll illustrate this, it sounds a bit abstract, and this is what you have to understand. And even if you're listening to a singer and you don't understand what he's singing, if you can catch on this, you'll begin to understand how these things work structurally. And if you attempt to learn songs, it'll be easier for you. It's something we pick up almost intuitively. Maybe some people don't pick up at all. I want you to look at the last verse, in whichever side suits you best. When I say the last verse, it's the second last verse here. This last 4 lines, which I've written as 8 lines on the back there. Mochrasa haul na déise. If you're looking at the IPA in the back, I've underlined it, and I've underlined and I've made bold the stresses. So he's singing there, my love over there, the Dacia, that's Watford. Its fields, its glens, its mountains. Since I crossed over the sea, I'm afflicted and dispirited. That's my translation of it. But what I want you to hear is ah, ow, a, ah, ow, a, ah, ow, e. Mochrasa haul na déise, idir bánta gleann de sléite, ó nás an naun haar train wir time céasta gan bhrí. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Mochrasa haul na déise, idir bánta gleann de sléite, ó nás an naun haar train wir time céasta gan bhrí. Ó báile dia méid léchas, mo chláán sa siar de héiring, agus lán le slíomh na féile le séir Éamonn chrí. Do you hear it?
Yeah.
That's what I want you to pick up on. Now, if you're learning songs in Irish, the first thing I have to say to you is broad vowels are broad. And people in Ireland are not good at that. You have to use the full of your mouth. As my mother used to say, sing big fat Munster Irish. She said big fat Munster Irish. And really, one of my advice to you, if you're going to sing in Irish, don't be frightened of it. Get those vowels out and spit them out. If you overemphasize them, it will sound far better than under-emphasizing them. So, and the other thing is, this only applies to Irish people in the audience, particularly female under 35. We've developed a new kind of way of, the women in particular have developed a new way of pronouncing vowels. And that has to be avoided. It's a difficult thing to explain. I can't even reproduce them, you know. But if people are playing the you know, yeah. So that has to be. So it's not Sliabh Geal, you know. It's Sliabh Geal, you know. So that's very important. Nice broad vowels. This particular song is late, of course. It's a 20th century song. But the reason why I've picked it is that. I wanted you to, because it's quite explicit and it's simple. There are much more complicated examples. The literary poets would have written more complicated ones than this. This is actually quite simple, believe it or not. The other thing was that the literary poets, such as we call them, they were part-time poets that were trying to sustain a literary tradition. Their audiences were the vulgus popularum, if you like. So, as Sean O'Toole described, they're folk sung by destination, but not by origination. So the target audience were ordinary people, and of course, their approach influenced to a greater extent what we would regard as purer folk song. And this is somewhere in the middle, particularly in Munster and in northeast Ulster. Some of you were doing Milligan Devoe this morning. That would be Peadar O'Durney. He'd be there was a strong literary tradition in his area, in Louth and Armagh and so on and so forth. This was written in 1912, quite recent, but it's nearly the end of the era of this type of poetry. Do you want to try Mhrása Hawl na Déise? Mhrása Hawl na Déise. Idir Wanta Gleanta. Can you say that? Gleanta. Sléite. Ó nás a noun. Hart Trainwood. Han Céiste gan Bhrí. Okay? And we've got to get the rhythm into it, you know. When we were going to school, we learnt tables. And we used to sing them, sort of. You know. 2 and 2 is 4, 2 and 3 is 5. We learnt them. And we used to do a joke in school one time that a fella was asked to recite his 12 times tables, and he went, na 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 na. And he said, what kind of tables is that? Well, I've got the tune, but I haven't learnt the words yet. So I'm anxious that's where I'm coming from here, you know. So Mhrása Hawl na Déise. Mhrása Hawl na Déise. Idir Wanta Gleanta Sléite. Ó nás a noun Hart Trainwood. Han Céiste gan Bhrí. Okay. Ach ó báil na dia mé gléchas. Má hlán sa siar go héirí. Is slán le sliabh na féile. Le séir chead omchrí. Yeah, I heard Shlán. Somebody said Shlán. Slán. Yeah, I'm writing. S there is that's and this is sh. Okay, there. Okay, very important. There is this like. Okay, that's the middle vowel. Oh. Okay, so it's unemphasized. What else? Yeah, the stressed vowels are, I'm writing them at E, okay? E. And then the consonants, if I, that there, that's bui. And then if I write E.
E.
Yeah. All right. So oh yeah, that sound. I can't even write that. Yo. That's it's there's two different kind of cogasuck is the Irish word for it. I don't know English, but that's down your throat. But this is up here somewhere. Machrasa. Yeah, machrasa. Okay. So machrasa hawl nadesha. Idir wanta glean to sléite. Bót nás a naun haar train with. Haim céiste gan bhrí. Ach ó báil. You hear that L in narrow L. Ó báil. Le dia. Me léchas. Machlán sa siar go héiring. Agus slán le sliabh na féile. Le séir chead umchrí. I'm going to listen. You're going to listen to that song by a man called Éamonn Ó Bróithe. He was from the Cumberland Mountains, and he was a contemporary and a neighbour of the poet. And I just want you to. I hope if I press this now, I hope I want you to listen and try and discern that vowel pattern and that rhythm in what he's doing, because he's Shano, like what people vaguely call Shano singing, and I've a lot of problems with that term because I think I don't really understand what it means. But your first impression is something very fluid and very ornate, but there is this structure underlying it, and that's what I want you to hear. Wrong singer. That's the man that taught the song to me. His name was Mícheál. He was a fisherman in Ringin, County Waterford, and you can see when you met someone like that, it kind of it was a massive influence on me. I'm sorry, I'm actually starting in the turn of the tune. I'm not singing. Some of you must be familiar with this song already. How many people are? Yeah. Right. You better start at the beginning, son. But I know I won't waste time because I think that's very important. If you look at the first verse, where I have an X, that's where you have a stress that isn't an assonant rhyme. So if you look at the first line, Sliabh Geal na féile is fada. You see, it's not an E. It's fada with again me. He gCua na ménar go trélag fi vrón. A Sliabh, can you say that? A Sliabh. And then an S. A Sliabh Geal na féile. Is fada with again me. He gCua na ménar go trélag fi vrón. An tille bhui héimhdín. Idir mé is tír mo chléve. That's a good one. Chléve. Ó a Sliabh Geal na féile. nach déireach é mo scoil. Is the meter and those vowels, it's clear to everybody, is it?
Yeah.
Everyone's got that. It's, okay. I'll just sing that, so. Na Sliabh Geal gwen féile is fade Bróithe gin me Mícheál gwen me nar gCláirseach févrón Antile wi hevdim idir meest hier mooi leve O Sliabh Geal gwen féile nach déireach é mo scoil. I should have the déireach, that should be emphasized as well. That's a title, it should be underlined, nach déireach é mo scoil. That's your A, O. So the stresses in the first 3 lines are, there's an unstressed syllable after, but then it finishes on a stress. Sliabh Geal gwen féile is fade Bróithe gin me Mícheál gwen me nar gCláirseach févrón Antile wi hevdim idir meest hier mooi leve O Sliabh Geal gwen féile nach déireach é mo scoil. Is that key, Sue? Everyone?
It's a bit low.
Is it?
You can do it.
I'll see what I can do. O Sliabh Geal gwen féile is fade Bróithe gin me Mícheál gwen me nar gCláirseach févrón Antile wi hevdim idir meest hier mooi leve O Sliabh Geal gwen féile nach déireach é mo scoil. How comfortable are you with that?
I'm very comfortable.
Yeah, okay. We'll do it again. Sliabh Geal gwen féile is fade Bróithe gin me Mícheál gwen me nar gCláirseach févrón Antile wi hevdim idir meest hier mooi leve O Sliabh Geal gwen féile nach déireach é mo scoil. Another important point of identifying the stresses that have long vowels on them is very often that's where you're going to ornament if you're playing or singing. So you get Sliabh Geal gwen féile is fade Bróithe gin me. That's that's where you have that's where it's going to happen if it's going to happen at all. Sometimes I think less is more, but I've always noticed like people who learn this song and sing it, you'll get that da da da. I don't know, is it a natural or a flat or whatever it is. Whereas that man and other people who I heard singing it, they wouldn't have done that. But they'd hint at it. They would kind of suggest it and then they'd pull back. So you get Sliabh Geal gwen féile is fade Bróithe gin me. And so they kind of go in between the two nearly, but, which I find very attractive. Kind of these spaces in between. Mícheál gwen me nar gCláirseach févrón So if you were, say, taking one of these songs and you were going to, say, even play it as an instrumental piece on the harp, it's worth looking at them and understanding, or even hearing and singing. If you don't even understand what it's about, listen to the system, and because that's where you're going to have the scope for ornamentation, if that's what you want to do. And I was listening to Siobhan giving a class this morning on Mícheál the Vo, and a lot of the esoterics were escaping me completely. I don't know what's going on. But I could see this relationship between the assonantal stresses and what she was trying to teach. I'm sure she could explain that better than I can, but she was definitely taking cognizance of this. So when you hear a song, what's the structure? What's happening? You know? And no matter how ornate a singer is in, some singers are tremendously ornate, but you'll hear that this is where it's happening. Like Maura's relation, Beck Cronin, I was listening to her only 2 days ago, and she was singing. Was that Remain or Lead, and it's highly complex, but it's all working around the stresses. This is where it's happening. This is giving the song the structural integrity. You know? Will we sing that again? Na Sliabh Geal is Sliabh Bróithe gin me Mícheál me Sliabh until we him dear me sier moi cleve oi Sliabh Geal nach the air is actually a kind of a distant relation of Sean O'Dear Lan, I think. The next part of the is the turn of the tune, and see A A A A A A A A A. Ba Menschen mas Gceláirseach ich ging glasen Schever Neures Kapentas Nigrenaun O spare Gilgan small. Then it's oh boy no the Menschen sud Feiril hin nor hittin druach de down O Sliabh Geal ar yerkshin da mederi oilt. This time there is no assonant rhyme on the first stress, you can see that. So it's something ooh a, you know. No da Menschen sud Feiril nor hittin druach de down, the Sliabh, but they're all, the first ones are all different. Da major all. Da Menschen mas Gceláirseach ich ging glasen Schever Neures Kapentas Nigrenaun O spare Gilgan small. No da Menschen sud Feiril hin nor hittin druach de down O Sliabh Geal ar yerkshin da mederi oilt. And then so that's your full tune. That's your verse. I don't know, I suppose there are 8-line verses with a turn in them. I've written in 2 different ways here, you know. So it's Shemelin nach is togin lelin is morgid olish in elin nuesel hjolver hjolter movel o rawin kwartar Scoil is veting har barfoot maar de Sliabh Geal byr allam Wardach in rain. Now you have to join in. Mogras a hawl nidische, idir wanted lawn tish later, old nas naun har train with I'm kissed gun free. A ho ball made has Molon se fier go heading agus slán le na féle le sercha dom chrí. Maybe singing a tune. Does anyone have any difficulty with pronunciation or any part of that if they wanted to, if they were actually thinking of having a go at it?
It's not intuitive, but it's doable.
Yeah. I'd imagine the Irish.
It's a bit different here. I pronounce some words different, but Northern Irish, so.
Yeah, well, it's a southern song.
It's a southern song,
And the thing about is dialectically, a lot of these songs aren't transposable.
No, they're not.
You see, because of the vowel sounds, you know, they don't work. You know. The great example is gCláirseach. You hear people singing Kilcash, you know. Éamonn faster than I'm the David na gailtear lár, ní trach gCláirseach na taile, is ní whinger of flying gebrach. So if you sang that in anything except Waterford Irish, it's just not going to work. You know. I suppose my time is.
Well, you're grand. This is an hour, isn't it? So we still have another sort of 20 minutes.
Oh, all right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to work on this or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. I want you to listen to another man singing it. This is Lauros O'Keyle. This is the man who said he was going to sing the first time. He was a singer from Scartmadrini on the slopes of the Cumberland Mountains, and he came. The poet mentioned Skehin Glas na Shebar. Skehin was the townland near Kilbrine that the poet was from. Well, this man was from Scartmadrini, which you could walk from Scartmadrini to Skehin, and they were friends. So this is as close to the poet as we're going to get. And he's a very traditional singer. It just shows you how the scope for interpretation that's involved in these things.
Sliabh Geal Da mensch shall kushleus geingan shever ner skap fantastic day down on spiegel on fra nu da meng leaf in red hum ner hit the roof there on Sliabh Geal yer kilometer Snach entruan af verstogen de Scoil smur verdovish Smiling villish go Hjolter vel Ma hering kud her salle Agus browning her bardet Mar Sliabh Geal bedralen Trugeshkin tumrem Ma gras halmedish der vant gelant de slete O hanas an awn hatim with harm frecht the blood and lee. Net is tell die me lechas mahlan to sheer the heading of the salon helier and hell and the young non free.
The words are slightly different. That's the oral tradition. Things change. You'd imagine he'd have been closer to the poet, but there you go. He did one thing. I wondered if anyone noticed what he did. He made a liar out of me. How did he do that?
He did an ornament
On stress line. Yeah. He did, yeah.
Yeah.
He did it twice.
Yeah.
So he's. But if you're 19th century Cumberland Mountain dweller, okay, you can try that. I wouldn't advise it. we'll stick to the straight and narrow, you know. But you do hear that he with no abstract conceptualization of stresses and acids or anything like that. But it is informing what he's doing. You can hear it. You know, like he knows what he's doing. He's absorbed that, you know, from just that's the way people sang. He was great, wasn't he? Yeah.
He also spent quite a long time on the Sliabh Geal. He drew that out quite significantly.
Yeah.
In Scottish Gaelic, obviously you do stress the long vowels, but you're also meant to shorten all the short. You know, you're not allowed to spend time on short ones.
Yeah, that's the point.
I'm just wondering, is that the same in Irish? I mean, was he just kind of bending the rules a bit?
He is bending the rules, yeah.
But you yourself would tend to make sure that the short ones are short as well as
I wouldn't
make
make
sure the long ones are long.
No, I make the long ones are long. What I do with the short ones, I'm not quite sure. I'll have to observe myself.
Right, okay, yeah.
I don't know. I can't answer your question. I'll have to listen to myself more often. We try again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We sing it right through. You think you can manage that? Okay. Where were we now? Da 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 da. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it might be a little bit high for some people.
Is it?
So can we just take that?
Yeah. Poesia.
Yeah.
Okay. Poesia galguet fede is fade waiting in me. Im he verschwin mer gCláirseach feron until we hedim dear mes dear moide oi dear galwen fede nach der mission a minche mas noelte ich geh in glasen schevar nueves capentas negrenaun os per gilgan small no da minchen sud ferel hin nuede hitin luach der down oi lieb galwe nar gerikshin dan megeri oil Shemelin nach is wind Lilin is more gedodisch Ingelen was jol Oi scholtel navel Crowin quartar soile is bedding har barhood My Sliabh Geal virallam who are doch in rem Mo bros hawl medische, idir wanted land schleche, og nas naun har train wir heim kiste gan bli. Ach o bol die medlechas, mohan sich hier wening, agus glán leis na féle, les hercad free. To answer your question, I think I was singing until it's the stress, it's actually the stress itself. Until we, there's not much scope, but the stress has to be stressed, irrespective of whether the vowel is long or short, No volunteers. All right.
Safety in numbers.
Yeah. Just to show how far they could take this sort of thing. The poet I was singing last night, Éamonn Ó Bróithe, he wrote a song, and every line is A, U, E, U, E, A, O. Every line in the song, he does that. It's very simple. There's actually far more complicated. Very simple, but extremely challenging, And it goes, Amen shall shulevis edusiche ingwefiv kyo lem hev gerjarkes fjunri amunsi goishever shol Kever fadin a buachlif Toer cheese erskivan nor Go kriv op kaste huish we in funsi go bro. And you follow that pattern right through 8 more verses, or 7 more verses, 8 in total. But that would be a literary song. Most of the folk songs would tend to be simpler. And the harpist songs would be quite simple. There's a definite distinction between... There seems to be some legitimacy, the idea that there were lyricists as opposed to poets, but there's an interaction between the two. And the melodies that the poets were using were obviously coming from some musical tradition, because they didn't habitually, I don't think they were composing tunes, the poets themselves, But that to give you an example of what some people were doing, So this is actually quite simple compared to that, So we'll go through it one more time, and thank you very much. I hope it's been of some use to you. What I'm anxious to do is that you start getting, we're only kind of opening the door a small bit and looking in, but when people talk about stress meter poetry and óráin, that you're getting an idea exactly what we're talking about. That this is the way they were composing, and tunes were informing. This particular man, I'm convinced, he always started with a tune. He all his lyrics are definitely, he started with a tune. It's not as if they were composing tunes to fit words. They were writing words that fit the tunes. And it was the melodies that were suggesting to him what would be pleasing. It all makes sense as well, by the way. It's not just some kind of series of vocals, but which of course is what makes it more amazing still, So Siobhan the key.
Should we just sing it all together again?
Yeah, well, that's what I want to do, but I'm just hoping you give me the key.
Okay, oh sorry, no, whatever you choose is great, because I think I was wrong, because it made us go a bit low, whatever I chose last time, so you choose.
Does anyone else chosen? No, Éamonn Ó Bróithe is father would in me in ye Christ when never say love wrong until we are reading it is here we live. Oh, Éamonn Ó Not it away Mícheál Tá mense mas moelte Ich ging las na shivar Noedes kappentas negrenaun Os fair will ganz small No dan mense sud fairelhen Noe degen nur fairelhen O Éamonn Ó Bróithe shin Dan Mícheál Sémelin nach where is towing Lilin is more with all these England was pure We Sholten Mobile O Hrawin Quarter Scoil is dating Har Barhood My Sliabh Geal Ardach in Rym Mo gras hawl nidische want te slete Och nas naun har train wir heim kiste gan fri Ach o val die megnefas Modlan sich hier beheering Agus blond lichier na fere Lesser dadon free Thank you very much. My last message, don't be frightened of those vowels. Okay? Don't be frightened of them. Oh, use the full of your mouth and spit them out. Because that's what's going to make it sound good. It doesn't work if you don't. So don't be frightened of them. You know, particularly if you're singing a language you're not familiar with. It's going to sound better if you really go for them. Don't. Will I sing it?
Just before you sing it, just to say that I made a harp tune version of this if people want to take away a version they can play on a harp. And I made it from an earlier recording that Éamonn sang years ago. So I took the version that he sang then, thinking that's probably what he'll sing today. Of course, it isn't at all. Not at all. I know, there's just the odd note that's different. So, because then you were saying, Sliabh Geal
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah. I do.
Just to be aware that there's slight changes between it.
I do actually sing it that way.
Oh, you
Still.
do?
Yeah, but that's if you like is a variation. It's
Well, we'll get a recording of Éamonn singing this, and we'll try and put it on the website, the members area or something, so that people can access it afterwards. So there's just a version of the tune with a simple bass line. Now, I think I did a version where I copied out all his ornaments as well, but I couldn't find that photocopy today. So if I find it, she will make that available to you too. So if you want a copy, I'll just have them here as you go out the door. All right. Thank you so much, Éamonn. It's fantastic to have this.
I hope, yeah. What I'm trying to do is encourage you. You know, I think people feel things. Of course, yeah, of course.
Thanks. So thanks very much.
You know, it's not impenetrable. It's not unbelievably complex and esoteric, and white man can't sing the blues and all that type of thing. It's so how grab it, have a go. If you're involved in the Gaelic tradition, now too late, you're stuck in it. Go that one step further, Oi Sliabh Geal gwen féile is fade wait again me Mícheál gwen me with the lag fi vron until we dim dear meester moi leve Oi Sliabh Geal gwen féile nach der Mícheál Da Menche mas Bróithe is ging glasen Shevar Noir skapen tas Grenaun O Sliabh gan small No da Menchen sud ferel hin Noir de hitten droach de down Oi Sliabh Geal gwen sin da méidir áilt. Séimelín nach bhuair is tághaint le léim is mór chuid ólís Ingwélin wesil cheolvar bhui cheol telem véil O chrawin cuartar sáile is férin buar barhút Ma de Sliabh Geal bua bevirálam O gardach in réim Mo gras a hawl ne díise Idir wanted launti slite O nas naun har train wir Haim keste gan vri Ach o boili die medleachas Mo lan se go heding agus lan le Sliabh na féile le dom chrí. So thank you very much. The two recordings I played there are commercial recordings. One of them is Óran Inas by Nicholas Tobin, which is available from Grade E. And the other one is gCláirseach. I think it's just called gCláirseach.
Can you write down the references and then we can give them out to people?
I'll send them to you, yeah.
Great.
And so if you're interested in them, I think they're brilliant singers.
They'd be worth getting.
Yeah.
But, so that's it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.